Hey everyone, welcome to my room tour for 2023. I'm so excited to show you around this room that I've spent the past year perfecting. I'm so happy with how it's come out and I can't wait to share it with all of you. So without further ado, let's grab the camera and show you around the room. Here we go. So before we get into the details, here is a quick overview of the shelves on the right hand side of the room. And this new table that I got the other day as well, which actually folds completely flat. So if I want a bit of extra space there, I can just fold the table away. And as you can see, I've been recording a video about the WonderSwan. That is why all this stuff is here, out on the side. And then I have my big light there, which is on a tripod, which can sort of lean to the side like that. And you can also use these dials to adjust it. And on the door behind, we have the Quest 2 and the Valve Index controllers right there, as well as this bag here for the Atari Lynx, and there are actually 2 Atari Lynxes in there. So let's actually first start the room tour with this corner here. So this is something that's quite new. These are like sticky controller holders, and I've got a bunch more down here that I haven't attached yet. And the idea is, if you watched my podcast a few weeks ago, to actually get wireless controllers for most systems, and I'll be able to just have them on the wall there and take them on and off as needed. So let's begin with this top shelf up here. This is where I keep all of my PlayStation 1 games. And as you can see, I've been sorting through a few of them. These are these double thick cases that have more than one disc in. So there's a few interesting games there. Let me know in the comments if you see any that catch your eye as we're going through. These are 2 of my favourites. Klonoa there for PS1, and the Grand Stream Saga as well is a game that I want to play soon, because it has something to do with Quintet, which I'm still working on the video for that. So bear with me on that one. There's a bunch more games, and so you can see what's behind. Hopefully you can see that okay. And then just next to them there we have this plushie from Mega Man 10, and I actually got this when Mega Man 10 came out, so I've had that for quite a while now. And you might have noticed, but up here on the left are a few N-Gage games as well, a very, very small N-Gage collection. And then on the next 3 shelves we have my PS2 games. Most of the PS2 games anyway. There's a few still in the loft that wouldn't fit here, so I'll do a little pan across the shelves now. Let me know whether any games catch your eye as we're going across here. And there's a little Kirby plush in the corner, a little sleeping Kirby. Some of my personal favourites, Eco is a fantastic game. If you haven't played that one, that is a 10 out of 10 game. Literally one of the best games ever made. Grandia 2 is fantastic, although I prefer the Dreamcast version. SSX is quite possibly, outside of Mario 64, the best launch game on any system. Absolutely love that. Art and Ellico 2 is a fantastic RPG. Kingdom Hearts, of course, fantastic game. Odin Sphere, a really, really interesting PS2 game with some amazing graphics. And then as we're coming down to this next shelf here, we have Rez, is definitely a standout on this shelf. What an incredible game Rez is. And Star Ocean next to it, and Burnout 3 as well, they're all fantastic. Shadow of the Colossus, of course, the game that pairs with Eco. They're part of the same series, kind of. There's the other Art and Ellico game. And yes, I know I need to organise these. And there's a little chow in this corner as well that I got on holiday a while ago. I know I need to organise these. They're not in any alphabetical order or anything yet. And there's Banjo. He did have a Kazooie. I don't know where Kazooie's gone. There's a few PS3 games there. And here's the rest of the PS2 games. And there's a Kirby on the side, so let me know whether you spot anything interesting on the shelf. And then we're moving down here to my PS3 collection and Bub from Bubble Bobble. And if you squeeze him hard enough, then he makes a noise, which is pretty cute. And here's a look at the PS3 games down here. And then in front of these, I have these 2 sort of shelf on wheels kind of thing, so I can move these around as and when. And on this one is full of Super Famicom games and SNES games. There you go, there's one I picked up recently. Just random loose games in here. Kirby's Dream Land 3, fantastic game. I love that shiny cover as well, look at that. Looks so nice. So that's what's in these, and then this one has all the random unboxed Sega stuff that I've got as well, and some Atari too by the looks of it. There's Crystal Castles. I don't actually have an Atari that works, so I don't even know why that's there. There's some more. It's quite annoying that the Master System games don't have the title on the top, so you have to sort of angle them like that to find out what you're actually looking at, and I can't get it back in with one hand and the camera's really heavy. Anyway, moving down here, for some reason I've got Tales of Berseria there. That should probably go downstairs because I don't really want modern games up here that much. These are the control holders that I was talking about that I'm going to put on the wall soon, and then behind there we have all of my Wii U games. And I didn't realise how big the lens is for this camera, but there you go. Not a massive Wii U collection or collector in general. These are basically games that I picked up when the system was new. And then down the bottom here, just a bunch of plushies. So let's move over to the next shelf, which is the Sega shelf. And as you can see, I'm also using this shelf to store all of my different handhelds, or at least some of them anyway. So let's start up here and I can show you what we've got up here. We have some of these handheld emulation devices that I did a video on recently, so I'm just putting them here for the time being. And behind there we have my boxed Master System games. Master System is a great console. I've not really done many videos on it in the past, and there's definitely a lot of games that I would like to try and get for the system too. Some standouts here: Master of Darkness is a fantastic Castlevania style game. What else is good? Dragon Crystal's great. Wonder Boy 3, absolute classic. And then moving down here we have my Mega Drive games. Phantasy Star 4 and Ristar up there, Truxton, another classic. Got the EverDrive up there. I plan to do a video on the Mega EverDrive at some point in the future. There you go, let me know if you spotted anything interesting. And we have some more Mega Drive games here. Let's just move that out of the way because the Lynx is a chunky boy. Here's the rest of my Mega Drive games. And I actually lost this for a while. I found it the other day, so finally have the Evercade back again. And I've got a small selection of Evercade games down there, which we'll get to a bit later on. So here's the rest of the Mega Drive games for now. And as you can see, Neo Geo Pocket, fantastic little console with, of course, the best analog stick in existence. And some more Mega Drive games down here, as well as a whole bunch of different GBA SPs. This one's actually the IQ SP, and I was really annoyed recently to see that, when DK Oldies did a video and they actually destroyed one of these IQ SPs thinking that it was fake. So I'm very happy to own one, and trust me, I'm not going to do anything stupid with it. It's just going to sit right there on the shelf. Oh, and something I didn't mention about these handhelds, these are only here temporarily. I want to actually get stands like this for all of them in the future, so that they can all stand up nicely. I've got a few there, and I've got a few more over there, which we'll get to a little bit later. But for now, they're all here. There's my Gizmondo. I actually had to fix this because it was really sticky, but a lot of baking soda and a lot of washing it off has finally made the plastic normal again, so maybe I'll do a video on the Gizmondo in the future, who knows. Then this is one of my other Sega shelves. This one has a few Dreamcast games there in the corner. Let me know if any catch your eye there. MDK2 is a fantastic game. And here's my PAL Sega Saturn games. I really need to play Burning Rangers at some point. I was so excited to get that one, and I still have hardly played it all these years later, so maybe I'll do a full video on that in the future and actually give me a chance to play it all the way through to the end. Of course, Nights into Dreams, not just one of the best games on the Saturn, but one of the best games of all time. And Panzer Dragoon underneath it, amazing game. Saturn's a great system, it really is kind of overlooked. And then down here we have some more Dreamcast games. Dreamcast is another great system, although obviously not quite as overlooked as the Saturn. It definitely has its fans, me included. I love the Dreamcast. And then on this bottom shelf here is just random stuff that wouldn't fit anywhere else, including a few interesting things like this. I actually showed this off on Steeka's Nights into Dreams video if you want to go and see more about it. And there's a few Gizmondo games down there as well, and a few Vectrex titles. And Screamer 2 as well, fantastic racing game for the PC. And now for this shelf here in the middle. Let's start up here. This is something that's really cool actually, I'll turn this on. There's this little switch on the back and you can change the colours of it. I'll hit this blue one here. There you go, so I'll put that back up there. And as you can see, I've got a few different Game Boys with the stands on there. There's the nice Astro Boy Game Boy Light. And behind there, you can't really get to them very easily, but there's a bunch more Super Famicom games. And these are all Japanese ones that I haven't got boxes for. And there's some of the Nintendo Game & Watch things. I've got the Mario one and I've got the Zelda one up there too. And then on this next shelf down here, we have this really nice little statue of Will from Illusion of Time that I got off someone on Etsy, so I really love that. And this custom frame here that someone made for me called Archives. I don't know whether he's still doing it or not, but have a look on Google for Archives. And I've also got an Illusion of Time one somewhere as well, but let's just move that out of the way for now. And then behind here, I know some of you were wondering this is where I'm keeping all of my Game Boy games now, in these plastic boxes. And as you can see, well, you probably can't see, but those ones have some GBA games in too. And then down here, I want to find somewhere else to put these, maybe in the living room in the future, but for now, this is where I'm keeping all of my Switch games, although I don't really want modern games up here. I want this to be a retro room, so I want to find somewhere else to put these, but for now that's where the Switch games are, right there in the middle. So let's put that back and move on down. And down here we have my very, very small PSP collection. That's my entire collection of PSP games. Let me know what I'm missing from this, because it is a system that I would like to look into a bit more in the future. So definitely let me know what you think I should check out on the PSP. And behind them as well, I won't get it out for this video, but just so you know where they all are, that's where the rest of my Game Boy games are currently. I want to find somewhere to display them soon. And then on this one down here, we have a few special editions. We've got all of the different steel books for the Pokemon games in there, and some other ones. There's a nice Majora's Mask one, and some special editions for some homebrew stuff that I've picked up over the years, and a bunch of these little commemorative coins as well, which is pretty cool. I don't really have anywhere to put them, so they're all just shoved down there at the minute. And then down here is a few more special editions. We've got a few Switch ones there and some more Pokemon stuff. And this frame, which I thought was a really cool idea, but it doesn't really work very well. It's supposed to show off pixel art, but it just keeps resetting itself, which is kind of annoying. So that was that shelf. And now this one is probably the most interesting shelf on this side of the room. This is all my Japanese stuff that I've picked up over my several trips to Japan at the moment. So let's do a quick scan down the shelves here. And then I've got a few random boxed Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games, and ending with my DS and 3DS games, and annoyingly this plug here which goes behind the shelves there. But let's start at the top, and I'll talk you through some of the Japanese stuff. Or actually, let's start with this, which isn't a Japanese thing, but I think it's something really cool. This is a Game Boy collection checklist. So if you have a look through there, it's got a list of every single game that was ever made for the original Game Boy, and you can go through and check them all off. And I'm saving that for a rainy day, or a very rainy month, I think, to get through everything. There's another box of Game Boy games there, and behind them, as you can see, is all of my boxed Super Famicom games. So let me know if you spot anything interesting for the Super Famicom there. There's my Manakemia figure, which we'll get back to in a little bit. There's a few more there, and there's some more behind it too. And this one isn't actually a Super Famicom game. This was the special edition for Umihara Kawase Fresh, which just looks like a Super Famicom game, which is pretty cool, so I just store that up there. Now on this one down, we have a bunch of Game Boy Advance games across the top there, and a random Famicom game that snuck in, that's in the wrong place. There's Tetris on the Famicom. If you saw the Tetris movie recently, you'll recognise that box. It actually belongs down there. So up here we have some GBA games. There's Drill Dozer, Kuruin Paradise, which is a fantastic game, one of my favourites on the system. And across here we have a few more really interesting ones. There's F-Zero Climax, which is the final ever F-Zero game that never actually came out outside of Japan, which is very sad. And going across the top here we have my very small, again, Vita collection. Again, let me know what I'm missing on the Vita, what else should I pick up for the system. And there's the nice PS2 version of Nights into Dreams. And a few more little figures here, which I'll just move over there. And here's my Japanese Sega Saturn games. Absolutely love the Japanese Saturn, probably the best system for imports. So many awesome games. Unfortunately, not all of them have English on the other side. For the ones that do, I've put the English on that side, but some of them, like Gunbird here, actually have Japanese on both sides, which is quite annoying. But compare that to one of these games, and in fact most Japanese games you'll have Japanese on one side, and then if you turn it around you'll actually have English on the other, which is great so that I can actually see what's on my shelf here for whenever I want to pull a game out, without having to get out Google Translate. And it's the same for most Japanese PS1 games as well. And move that Android out of the way there. There's a few very small selection of Japanese Dreamcast games too. And this is actually pretty interesting next to them if I pull one of these out. These are actually the Toho games, which I picked up in Akihabara. I would love to try and get the entire set of Toho games at one point, because I'm a huge fan of that series. Now on this one, much like my English collection, I only have a very small set of Japanese PSP games here. Some great games though, of course, Umihara Kawase, one of my favourite series of all time. Project Diva games, I played a hell of a lot of them back in uni. And there's a little GameCube game, Squashed, pun intended, in the corner there. That's Kuruin Squash, another great game in the Kuruin series. And above them, these are pretty cool. These are the little Famicom special editions for the Game Boy Advance, which I really like. And there's a few Famicom Disk System games up here, and I don't actually have a way of playing them properly just yet, but I've got some interesting games that I want to play on there when I am actually able to, but unfortunately my disc reader has the issue with the broken belt, which apparently is fairly common. And there's some Japanese Switch games here. Fruits of Grisaya Trilogy, which is a really cool set of visual novels. More Project Diva. S-Braid, a fantastic vertical scrolling shooter. And Secret of Mana Collection, for some reason. Someone gave me that one for a tenner, so that is why I've got that. Now, this was something really interesting that I'd been after for a long time, and I finally found it. This is Kowloon's Gate, a really rare PS1 game for this special edition in particular. So very happy to actually have this now. And behind there, as you can see, these are all my PC Engine games. Another fantastic console, especially the Japanese version. Unfortunately, they don't have English on the other side, so I'm not going to go through and pull them all out now. But, if you're interested in PC Engine, let me know and I can do a separate video on them in the future. And up there's a few more GameCube games. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see what they are. Of course, I have to have Super Monkey Ball. So if you want to see what a Hue card looks like, that's the name of the PC Engine games, then they're basically these little credit card size games here, and they're really cool. I really love the design, and the games themselves are fantastic too. And then moving down to the next shelf here, we have some Japanese PS2 games back there and another Dreamcast game. Let's see what that Dreamcast game is. I think it's Trigger Heart. Yes, fantastic vertical scrolling shooter for the system, Trigger Heart Exalica. One of my favourite vertical scrolling shooters ever. There's also a few Japanese DS games down there. Taiko for the DS is fantastic. It uses the touchscreen like a little drum. Really fun game. And here's something really interesting, and I didn't really have anywhere in particular to store them, but, well, Ease isn't an English game, that's an American one, but you can play them on the Japanese system. But these three here are actually UK released TurboGrafx games, which you never really see anywhere, and I actually was really lucky to find them brand new in a sort of bundle a while back, so really cool to have them. Just thought that was something interesting to share. And then other things we've got down here, we've got Famicom Wars. I want to do a video about all of the Nintendo Wars games at some point in the future, so for those of you that don't know, this is actually a precursor to the Advance Wars series, which is really cool. So it's really interesting to see where that series got its start. There's also a bunch more Famicom games back there, and some Game Boy games too. So let's look back there first. This is something really interesting as well, but I'm not really sure that it's that good. It's a biosensor for the N64, and you actually attach that onto your ear, and then the game can read your heartbeat, which is very strange. And here's some Japanese N64 games. Some of these I just got with the system, that's why I have some of the games that you can already get in English in Japanese again, but Puyo Sun is an exclusive for the system, so it's pretty cool to see a game like that in the N64. And then next to them, as you saw, I've got all of these loose Famicom games here. And I love the Famicom, I love how colourful the cartridges are. I would love to get more in the future. Quinty's an interesting game actually. That was one of the first games that Game Freak ever made. before they went on to make Pokemon, obviously. So it's really cool to see where that company got its start. Then down here, this is where my boxed Game Boy Color and Game Boy Original and Game Boy Advance games are. And behind these as well, if I move some of them out of the way, you can see that that's actually double stacked because I haven't got enough room to show them all off. And they've all got these protective box covers around them as well, so I don't really need to worry about the cardboard getting damaged, which is always good, because it's very scary having loose cardboard boxes. So I tried to get covers for pretty much all of them, so I'm kind of safe now if anything was to happen. But I just decided to put the more interesting games at the front, so that is why those ones are at the front here, because I just find these games more interesting than the others. And there's also a bunch of Virtual Boy games here as well, which is a system that I believe gets an unfair bad rep. It really doesn't deserve it. And there's some other interesting things down there too. And then on these next two shelves down here, this is where all my DS and 3DS games are. Most of the games aren't actually in the boxes. Well, some of them are. I'm trying to get them all back in the boxes and then just use SD cards and EverDrives and stuff for most of my collection. But at the minute, the games are actually in this tub here, which isn't probably the best way of storing them, but for now, yeah, that's where some of them are anyway. But here's just a look at some of the games on the front here. And unlike the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance ones, I haven't really put any sort of thought into the order of these. I need to go through and order them, put the games back in the cases and stuff, but for now, they're just here until I have time to go through them and sort them out, and the same applies to all the games at the bottom here too. So there's a few other interesting things down here. There's these Action Replay VHS tapes, and then here are all my Evercade cartridges. I really haven't put much time into the Evercade. I bought all these thinking I was going to do a video on it, and then I moved house, so I haven't really had a chance to even look at them yet, but there's the ones I've got if anyone's interested. And then down here on the left, I think a lot of you will be interested in this. You can't really see too well down there, but this is where I've been storing all of my Game Boy homebrew stuff. And if I stand up slowly, you can see this is where all the other ones are too. And you can also see that I've completely run out of space for any more homebrew games. So I think I'm going to stop collecting there. And before we move on to the rest of the room, let's have a look at some of the stuff that is on the top of the shelf. So there's my Manichemia box. I know I mentioned a bit earlier about the Manichemia figure. Here, that is where she came from, in there. And I actually did a video on getting that when I did, because I was so excited for it. And let's have a quick look across the top. And I'll point out some of the more interesting things. There's the box for the TV game 6, which I'm saving to do a video on soon. There's a nice Xenoblade figure up there. There's the Virtual Boy. Unfortunately, it doesn't really play games that well anymore, so it's more of just a display piece than something for me to actually use at this point. And then we move on to this side of the room, which is where my consoles are, as well as all of the different connectors behind it, which actually link up with the computer on the other side of the room. I won't cover all of that in this video because I've actually got a separate video specifically for how I hooked everything up. Although it has changed slightly since that video, so if anyone is interested, here's a little look at how all my cables are routed currently. There's a lot of upgrades that I want to do, which I will get round to at some point in the future. And then I've got two screens here. I've got this really nice little CRT here, which I love for playing any games that are connected via the SCART cables there. So this actually puts one into one of the SCART capture things up there. Depending on the source, it can either go to this cheap one here, or it can go into the OSSC here as well, which has a lot better output, but some things aren't compatible with it, unfortunately. And then as for the systems here, we've got the Famicom, we've got the 8-bit DOE arcade stick, the PSP, which I've actually now got plugged in to the TV thanks to this cable here. It actually goes into this box here, which has loads of different component cables, and it's got a few switches at the top so you can switch between them. And the Wii there is also plugged into the component cables. And then we have PlayStation 1 and 2, Japanese N64, which I can actually swap out for my English one, which stays down there. So as you can see, I was playing Xenocrisis, which is a fantastic game. And I've got this, which lets you change the inputs for the various different systems. Got the Sega Saturn here, and the Dreamcast down there. A nice modded Dreamcast that's now region free, which is cool. There's the original NES. I don't have an original SNES plugged in. I've got one down there, but I actually use the Super NT, which is a lot nicer, along with the EverDrive. And down here is my broken Famicom Twin, unfortunately. I wanted it to be able to play the disc games, but they don't really work. PS3 is down there as well, and then down here we've got the Mega Drive, which is also modded, as I did a video on a while back. And then under there we have the PC Engine Duo R, which is one of the best retro systems there is, honestly. And I missed this one out, so there's another Mega Drive. This one's working at the minute because the one down there is actually broken, so that's the one I rely on currently. And of course the GameCube there with the Wavebird plugged in. I would love to try and get a better system to tidy this up a bit, but for now I'm kind of happy as to where it's at. And as you can see, all of the different plugs are actually stuck onto the underneath there. And under here as well, there's some lights that I can switch on. I think that one's fallen off. Yeah, it's down there. And that one can switch on as well, so it looks pretty cool when it's lit up, at least from that angle when you can't see all the cables. And then up here I've got a few cool things. I've got this nice retro break bit there, which is in the background. I've got my Trackmania Sunrise license plate, which was very kindly given to me by Pass the Plunger at Play Expo last year. And then I have this really nice Sonic and Tails kind of canvas print here, and a little monkey ball one on that side, which came from the collector's edition. That was this part of the room here. Like I said, I did a full video on how everything's hooked up and how I use it all on my channel, so definitely go ahead and check that one out. I'll leave it down in the description and in the pinned comment as well. And just in case you're wondering, that's where I get the sound from. Now it's time to take a look at this shelf here. So I'm not really sure what was going on at the top here. It's a little bit of a mess, but it is what it is. And then on the first shelf here, we've got all of my NES games. And I really love the NES. It was the first system that I ever played. And I did actually do a memories episode on the NES for my 20,000 subscribers video. So if you want to have a listen and a watch of some of my memories for the system, then definitely go ahead and check that video out. I'll put it in the description as well, in case you want to find out my memories on the NES, which I think was a really good one. And I'm going to do a follow-up, obviously, for the SNES when I reach my 30,000 subscribers, which is actually coming very soon. So at the front here, I just have a load of loose SNES games, and then back there, I've got all the ones in boxes. So hopefully you can see it okay with the glare from the window. Lots of really great games for the SNES. And then on the next shelf down, of course, N64 comes next. All of my boxed games at the back and all the loose games at the front. I have actually been considering trying to sell some of my loose games in order to actually get some more games in boxes, which I might do later on. There's also another row of loose N64 games right here as well. If you can't tell, I'm a big fan of the N64. Probably my most nostalgic system, maybe after the SNES anyway. And then behind there are some GameCube games, another system that I'm very nostalgic for. And then down here we have more boxes that just wouldn't fit anywhere else. And then behind them, of course, GameCube stuff all the way across, and some more GameCube stuff at the front. And then anything else that wasn't in those plastic things over there, I've kind of shoved in these drawers for now. So I'm not really sure where I can put these. Again, maybe I'll think about selling and upgrading to ones in boxes. There's a few more loose SNES games that didn't have anywhere else to live. And then these next two shelves down, we have all of my Wii games, and they're all double stacked as well because I was a little bit of a hoarder during the Wii era, so I do have an abundance of Wii games. And down there, and there's a few more games that I haven't yet got box protectors for, so I'm just storing them down there. And if you were wondering where the rest of my Game Boy games are, let me open this for you. I actually started filling this up and I was planning to go through and put them all in alphabetical order, but I kind of got bored of the idea, so some of them are in here. like I said about that book on the other side of the room, on a very rainy day, I'll probably go through and fill this up and check off all the checklists in the book at the same time. But that's where I'm at with that. It's not really a priority at the minute. And then this is supposed to be my light box for taking videos, but as you can see, it's just full of junk at the minute. Before we move on to the other side of the room, I want to talk about the window. And yeah, that may sound a bit strange, but hear me out. So basically, see this line here? That's because I didn't quite match it up properly. But I've actually got some UV protective film on the window here, and apparently that will stop these games over here from getting sun damaged from UV light. And as you can see, it also darkens the room a bit as well, which is really good because this big window makes the entire room really hot. So I've also got this fan here, which I usually switch on when I'm at work, but it's a bit noisy, so I'll turn it off for now. And then on this side of the room, here's my computer setup. I won't go into loads of detail about all of this in this video. If you'd like me to do a separate sort of desk tour video in the future, let me know in the comments, maybe I can get around to doing it, but I'll just give you a quick rundown as to some of the more interesting things here. So if you watched my video about my console setup, you'll know that there's actually some cables that come all the way down here, and yeah, it's a bit scary under there, but basically they all converge into that box there and into this HDMI switch here, and there's a few more loose ones dangling down, and basically that allows me to capture every single console onto the computer, both my Mac over there and the Windows computer underneath the desk. And as for stuff on the desk that's of interest, this is a very interesting 3DS because this is actually a modded one which allows me to capture 3DS games, and I really need to use that more, so I've left it out here so that I use it in the future. We've also got the RetroBreak's here, and I've had a few people actually asking me whether I still use it. And yes, I still do use it. I think it's one of the best inventions of the last 10 years, to be completely honest. It's so, so good. It basically allows any games to be put on there and actually stored onto the hard drive itself, which is fantastic. There's the dock for the analog pocket, which I don't use quite as much as the RetroBreak's just because the connection with the controller is a bit annoying. We've got a Switch dock there for whenever I want to play Switch games up here. And I've also got the Mister there as well. And this is something pretty cool. This is a desk-mounted monopod, so I can just put my camera on there and really easily set up my recording space. And for whenever I'm doing meetings at work or anything directly in front of the screen, like streaming, I've also got one back there, which is on this monitor arm here. And I've also got this remote, which allows me to turn the lights on and, you know, control the brightness of them as well for when I'm streaming and recording, which is really good. Got a nice speaker, a nice sound bar there. That was actually from my old TV. And what else is interesting here? The Epilogue GB operator, which I did a video on in the past, is right there. And most interestingly of all, Retro Gamer and a cupcake, which my girlfriend just made for me, which I will eat as soon as I've finished this video. So I'll put that right there. And it's also a standing desk as well, so I can press this button here and the desk raises up. And you can see the nightmare of wires underneath. And there's some more wires in the boxes there. But that about wraps it up for the room tour. So let me go back onto the main camera and wrap this video up. So there we go, that was my room tour. Thank you so much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I did showing you all around. If you want to know a bit of history about this room as well and this house that I'm in, I actually did a video last year when I first moved in here to explain my situation and explain how I managed to upgrade to the room that I'm in right now. So click over there and watch that one next. And if you did enjoy this and you want to see more videos, then please subscribe and please consider checking out Patreon as well to support me and my creative endeavours here on RetroBreak. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all again very soon for the next video. Goodbye!